Looking good, James.
TGIF, Ed. TGIF.
Yeah, you know what? Say that again.
Are you glad that it's Friday? Was this a week to remember?
Glad's a strong term that I don't like to use very much.
You don't? Why not?
I don't know.
Glad? Are you glad that you're here?
I'm glad.
What other word would you use to describe how you feel about being here today?
I don't know. You know what? I don't know.
No?
Let's talk about
The show today? You want to know what's going on today? I'll tell you what's going on today. Lots. We have live in the studio geologist Steve Hughes and copper executive Stephen Dunn, who are going to give us a little bit of insight into the global supply and demand scenario for copper and why copper juniors might just be on the verge of a breakout.
Yeah, there's some interesting supply-demand metrics that are occurring in that area, and copper could become
thing.
It could be.
We've also got joining us today.
Good point, Ed. Good point.
Judy Baker, who's the CEO of Argo Gold.
Right.
Now, Argo Gold is exploring in northwestern Ontario.
Next to, reasonably close to Great Bear.
Right, close to Great Bear, which if you weren't paying attention, it's one of the gold companies that shot up from 40 cents to over $2 on a discovery. Judy is in the same geographical setting with the same volcanics.
The signature, if you will.
The signature. Precisely.
You look great today, I got to tell you.
Thank you, Ed.
What's the occasion?
It's I dressed up for you. I always do. Okay. Also joining us today is Sprott CEO Peter Grosskopf. Now, if you don't know who Sprott is, you just don't know.
You don't know anything.
Exactly. You don't know nothing. And so anyways, Peter was here, and he was talking about their new digital gold platform called One Gold. And this is essentially a real paradigm shift in gold, because one of the problems with the gold market is that all of the would-be next-generation gold bugs have turned their attention to cryptocurrencies, eschewing gold as their grandfather's asset class and preferring their own digital asset.
Really?
Yeah. And so these guys at Sprott and their partners have figured out a way to digitize gold, reduce the complications associated with holding gold, i.e. high cost of storage, insurance, movement, redemption, etc. That's the problem with gold. If you hold gold in a year where it doesn't go up or only goes down, it costs you money just to hold it.
Like storage?
Storage, insurance, and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, also today, what we don't have is we don't have any ask me anything. So,
hey,
you audience, you can ask us anything. Yeah, we are watching for your questions, and we want some tough ones. Ask us some tough things. We're going to answer a few questions from yesterday, so if you were watching yesterday and you popped a question that didn't get answered, chances are we're going to answer it today because I made a list of the questions from yesterday and we didn't get around to answering. So, without any further ado, here is Mark Hadfield, CEO of Hello MD. Hey, welcome now. My guest joining me from San Francisco via Skype is Mark Hadfield, CEO of Hello MD. Mark, welcome.
Thank you, James. Thank you for having me.
Sure, you bet. Mark, let's start with an overview. What is the business of Hello MD?
Sure. Well, Hello MD was founded 4 years ago in California by myself with a focus on health and wellness cannabis consumers. Our initial service was a telehealth service where we connect patients and doctors over video link, much like this Skype link. Mm-hmm. But then over the 4 years, we evolved into a full demand-side platform. So what we do is we seek to answer all the questions that cannabis consumers have, which includes beginning with consultation with a doctor or medical professional, but then product advice on all sorts of things. I mean, it's just a confusing landscape for many new consumers to come into. So the company's evolved into a B2B and a B2C demand-side platform. And we have about 100,000 patients that we've connected with doctors, and we have a growing community of about 250,000 people on the platform.
Okay, so are those patients currently all in the U.S.?
Well, actually, over the 4 years, we've also expanded the territory. So we started in California. We opened in Canada recently with B2B offerings. And then we've expanded our service offering to include e-commerce, cannabis sales and delivery to California. And then nationwide CBD sales throughout all 50 states in America, which we obviously see as a massive growing market.
I see. So
we're one of the few. Yeah, we're one of the few tech platforms that has scaled across borders, state borders and national borders. And because we don't touch the plant, of course, we're able to do that. So that's something a lot of cannabis companies struggle with, is geographic scale.
Okay. So is your focus exclusively cannabis oriented?
Well, it's health and wellness. I mean, we think that we think the cannabis is part of the health and wellness industry, and ultimately will be absorbed back into the health and wellness industry. But we have a cannabis-specific focus. So, people come to us primarily because they have depression, they have insomnia, they have stress, they have PTSD, they have migraines, they have chronic pain. And we think that's the biggest part of the market. Hundreds of millions of people have those conditions. And so it's really a health and wellness-focused platform with a strong cannabis orientation.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. And so how do you make money, if you don't mind my asking?
Well, we make money different ways in different territories. So in Canada, it's a B2B offering today where we do white label cannabis telehealth for LPs and for other big companies. In California, we make money through B2C telehealth, as well as cannabis e-commerce sales and delivery, and then CBD sales through mail order as well. So it depends on the territory, but we think over time, each territory continues to liberalize, and we intend to offer a full suite of demand-side services to consumers where we can. We're also looking at Europe, of course, United Kingdom and Germany, so it's definitely a worldwide focus, but each territory has to catch up with cannabis legalization before we can deliver the full set of services.
I see. And so do you work in partnership with licensed producers to recommend their products, or do you have an agnostic approach to which product supplier your patients end up using? How does that work?
Yeah, so it's essentially up to the consumer. Of course, we work with many of the licensed producers. So, we document their products. We have feedback on their products in terms of reviews on medical efficacy. And then when the consumer comes in, they're connected with a healthcare practitioner. And then we also guide them through their choices as to which products might be more suitable for them. And of course, which LP they may want to connect with. We work with a number of LPs, not all of them, but we work with a number of LPs to make their products available to consumers.
Uh-huh. And so what is the biggest sort of driver that brings a customer to your platform?
Well, it's simply cost and convenience. It's online, purely online. And, despite the fact that cannabis is becoming destigmatized, a lot of people still feel a little awkward about it. And so the ability to connect privately from their home, from their office, to not have to go and sit and wait in a clinic, to not have to go and visit a dispensary, those are very powerful factors, particularly for the consumer that we are targeting, which is the health and wellness consumer that's not recreationally focused. Maybe they've never tried cannabis before. Maybe they tried it in college, but now they're getting a bit older and they have medical issues that they're trying to solve for. And so it's really the cost and convenience and the privacy of being able to do it completely remotely, completely over video, as well as getting quality medical advice and information.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Do you expect that global deprohibition in the United States will be a large boost to your business? Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, it's been fascinating to watch what is happening in Canada because, in many ways, Canada is behind the United States in terms of product innovation. But on the other hand, because of the deregulation in Canada or the legalization in Canada, it's opened the doors to the public markets, to more traditional, more conservative companies wanting to enter the market. And so we think the United States will go exactly the same way. Right now we have this thing called the States Bill, which is slowly making its way into Congress, and that's potentially is going to open the doors to to all of these things, investment, public markets, the entry of big companies into the industry itself. And so we think that Canada is a bellwether of what's going to happen in the United States, and the United States will get there eventually in a bigger way, most likely.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, so then if I was wanting to, decide whether cannabis was right for me, how would I come across you without having heard about you before?
Well, we do it. It's a B2B and a B2C. So we produce a lot of content. We have a lot of organic search. That's the one channel that you might come across us through, is just by searching on cannabis and any health condition and coming across a piece of content. It could be a video or a written article that we've put out or an interview with some expert. And so about 50% of our customers come to us through organic search. The other 50% come in through the partner channel. So we have white label offerings for LPs and brands as well. Basically, anybody who's looking to educate cannabis consumers in advance of the purchase of their product can deploy some of our technology on their website and deliver a discreet doctor's consultation to that patient, and then have them returned back to that website for their shopping experience. So it's about 50-50 between those two channels is how we acquire customers.
I see. I see that you actually have some of the LP's products available on your website. Does that mean I can buy them directly through you, or are these just links to the actual company's websites?
Yeah, so in Canada, that's informational right now. So, the LPs that we work with, we show that they're products, and so we advise customers as to their product choices. Of course, to make the connection, they need to connect with the LP. That's the state of legislation in Canada. In California, it's different. In California, we offer a similar product selection, but you can actually have the full e-commerce experience. So you can add to cart, you can pay and check out, and then a driver will show up at your door within an hour or so with the products in a bag. That's the California experience. So As I said, it depends on the territory. Yeah. It depends on the territory, but ultimately you want to get there in Canada as well, depending on how things go.
Mm-hmm. So as a medical sort of oriented organization, do you think that the California approach that makes access to cannabis really easy for anybody, do you think that constitutes a bit of a risk to certain segments of society relative to the Canadian model, where it's very difficult and very controlled to get access to cannabis?
I don't look at it as a risk. I mean, cannabis is everywhere. It's always been everywhere on the black market. And so really, the way I look at this is it's more a question of giving consumers the right advice and information and letting them make an informed choice. You can't keep it away from them. They can always get hold of it. They can get it from someone down the road. They can get product that hasn't been tested. They can not have the right information and medical advice, and so that's not the right channel. So I think also if you look at the market, there's probably about 12% of consumers that are on the recreational side, but we think that there's a much bigger sector that really have health and wellness concerns, and for those people, cannabis is a very, very strong alternative for things like opiates, for stress, for anxiety, and so. You have to look at the alternatives. If you say, is it a threat? The question is, what is the alternatives? Of course, opioids are not a good alternative for chronic pain. So we feel like we're helping people. And as I said, with a strong health and wellness focus, quality medical advice, doctors that have been trained in cannabis, we think we're performing a very valuable service, as well as the discretion and the convenience of it.
Right. That's great, Mark. Okay, we'll leave it there for now. We'll come back to you in due course and have another conversation. Thank you very much for joining us today.
You're welcome, James. Thank you very much for having me.
Welcome back, everybody. What did you think of that? I want to say hello to everybody here from Finland, Calgary, Arizona, Burnaby, and Georgia. Welcome, everybody. But now, all the way from Union Bay, Union Center,
Nova Scotia.
Union Center, Nova Scotia, and all the way from around the corner, I present Steve Hughes, geologist extraordinaire and global man of mystery, and Stephen Dunn, copper executive CEO of Crown Mining Corp. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Boy,
pleased to be here.
This is free, nice advertising.
Yeah.
Not bad, eh? Not bad. So you guys are in the copper business, I understand.
Yes, we are.
And I see that your stock's been looking like it's gaining a little bit of interest and strength lately.
Perhaps.
Perhaps.
You never really know.
And so maybe you can shed a little light on why anybody would want to invest in a copper junior at this juncture in the whole commodities scheme of things.
Well, it's, in my opinion, rather simple. We have a situation right now where supply does not equal demand. It's less than demand. Demand is going to continue to grow, even with these trade wars that we have on. And at some point, copper prices need to move up. It's the only way we're going to get some new supply. If you think copper prices are going to rise, then copper stocks are going to be a good investment.
Okay, what have we got in the way of hard data to back that up?
There's Chuquicamata is going from an open pit to the underground. So there's a transition period, means their production's going to go down.
This is a big mine?
Big mine.
And so this is going to impact supply?
Yep. And then you've got Grasberg, that's shutting down, I think, next month. So they have an underground system and an open pit right now. They're going both to underground, and there's a transition period of 2 years there. So that's probably going to knock off maybe 150, 250,000 tons per annum until they get things ramped up.
Chilean mines they're talking, like, I saw a report recently that every mine is producing less. Like, where is it going?
Yeah, there's another report that says that 20% of the Chile mines are going to shut down by 2025. So there's a lot of pressure on copper right now.
6 of the 10 largest copper mines in the world are over 100 years old. So they just have not been investing enough in this space. And what's happened over the past 5 years, copper prices have basically been in a bear market. People stopped building new mines.
Yeah.
So we've got supply of approximately, you've heard these numbers before, 20 million tons being produced right now.
5 million scrap or...
That's right, refined.
Yeah.
And right now, demand continues to grow. It doesn't stop growing.
Every year.
Every year because of population growth, because of urbanization.
Electrification.
And now we have, with this renewable push, which is going to increase demand even then some. So even, we've got the fear of trade wars going on right now. That's not impacting global demand. Global demand continues to grow every single year.
Right.
So, and yet they're not adding new supply.
And Steve, you've been involved. We've got a couple Steves here, so don't both try to answer at the same time. Don't want to confuse the viewers. But you've lived in Indonesia involved in operating copper mines, right?
Yeah, I was working with Freeport McMoran Copper Gold on the Grasberg mine and the underground block cave systems. And yeah, it was a good learning experience. I understand quite a bit about it.
So when you study mining, do you study a specific element, or you care, or what? You seem to be drawn to copper as opposed to gold.
Yeah, look, I think copper makes more money than gold. Copper mine, if you look at the credits, if you got a 0.3 copper mine and you got a 0.3 and it grades 0.3 gold, it's the copper that's king.
Right.
So
okay, I've got a question here from one of our viewers, and we want to take these as they come in because sometimes they come in fast and furious.
Yeah.
Giovanti Music, who is a regular. Giovanti, good to see you again.
Giovanti?
And he's been a regular guest here, so he wants to know, what are the biggest industries that will be affected by the copper shortage?
Anything to do with electricity.
Yeah.
So that means
construction.
That means motors. That means delivering electricity for heat.
But
for
lighting. You're not saying we're in a dire situation right now.
There's a shortage right now. There's a deficit in production.
Right.
Price fixes everything. If copper prices went from $2.80 up to $4 in the next 6 months, there will be more supply.
But the supply doesn't just come on immediately. It takes time, right? So right now you're looking at most of the mines around the world are running well over 0.6%, the good mines, right?
Right.
So if we start to see the supply crunch, which it's already in, the mines or the deposits, the porphyry deposits, which supply 60% of the world's copper, you're going to be able to start looking at lower grade systems as the price goes up.
Sure.
But it takes time to put that into development.
It takes years to build these things. When you have a shortage that goes on and on and on, price just keeps going until The shortage is
It-
made up.
and, you know, 6 months ago or 3 months ago, and we were looking at things, and copper was 3.25. It looked like it was about to.
It looked like we
and
were
it-
finally going.
and it looks-
And then the trade war battle
Right.
started.
Yeah.
But here's the interesting thing: like demand is not falling,
No.
and
Right.
supply does not equal demand. So why has price fallen off? It's only because of the trading desks.
Well,
They're
it-
basically
So are you making reference to the futures traders?
yeah, they're pushing prices down because they think we can keep doing this till we can't anymore, and they make money doing that.
Yeah.
So
But like
would you
the-
say that the futures trading price that we see is not really a reflection of the value of copper?
That's a good way of putting it. If I was the Chinese and if I was the Indians, I'd
I mean,
be
if you
afraid.
were like all the Chinese?
Yeah.
I would be afraid
We wouldn't be able to
for,
understand you.
for the copper price going forward, because and I've said this before. China right now uses 10 million of the 25 million tons each
So
year,
40%.
and the price of those 10 million tons is approximately $75 billion. If prices go down by 10%, they've got a $7.5 billion win this year.
Right.
But they need more copper going forward. And as long as this shortage sticks
Yeah.
around,
And they got
prices
that big road going in, and
the
they
Silk
got
Road, and you have you have the country of India, which they're only using 2 million tons a year right now compared to China. Yet they've got more people.
So what happens when they start to
They're-
modernize
and they've
their
started
industry?
doing it. They like I just read an article a few days ago.
Right.
India now has almost run
This new president's been a big factor.
enough
hasn't he?
electricity, enough of a grid into all of their villages, so that all the villagers can now go out and start buying refrigerators and lighting
Things
and
with the-
air conditioners.
As long as
can
they have
start
long
doing it.
cords, though, to plug it into the.
More things with copper.
More things with copper.
More
So
things
Steve
with
Hughes,
copper.
in your opinion, where's the most prospective zones in the world for the next copper mines?
Oh, I mean, there's some excellent areas in Indonesia. South America is always a good spot. Western United States and Western Canada. Those are my favorite.
Why do you
areas.
say Western as opposed to.
Just the arc goes down there, so you have all the old
the
volcanoes.
mountains? Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
And that's where you
The
find all the
Rockies and
deposits.
the Andes and the
Yeah.
Sierra Nevada?
So Steve Dunn, your last press release was in April of this year, and you filed a technical report and preliminary economic assessment for your Moonlight Superior project. What were the big numbers on that?
179 million net present value after tax at an 8% discount rate.
And at what price copper is that?
$3.15.
$3.15. And today copper is at
$2.80.
Okay.
That's basically a break even for us. Nobody's going to build that mine though until copper's at
you
350.
need copper to move up.
Like, and the whole world's like that. Like most of the mines that make money at $2.50 copper have been built.
And how much copper do you have in 43101 categories in total?
2 billion pounds there right now.
2 billion pounds.
Yep.
And
And
you
when-
think in sorry,
Nope, it's all right. Go ahead.
just Placer thinks 4 billion,
Placer thought 4 billion when they did the
and
$4 billion?
I think 40 billion.
Forward-looking statement alert. Forward-looking statement alert. Non-43101 statement. 4 billion pounds of imagined copper.
No.
You were there? You
Listen,
drilled it.
I had a dream last night.
You were there with your wheelbarrow and your
Yeah, my rotor.
too much information. I don't want to know about your
Okay.
There's a huge opportunity, though, in this space because the entire copper industry, miners, are priced as if they're irrelevant. They're priced as if we don't need copper anymore.
There's-
And as you guys know, there are producers out there right now trading at 2 and 3 times cash flow.
Yeah.
It makes no sense.
Yeah.
People are going to come along and start buying these things because you can pay back your investment
Yeah.
in 2.5 years.
Right.
And what happens when price goes from $2.80 to $3.50?
Okay.
They're going to be cash flowing huge.
So what is the global catalyst that is going to transform the price of copper from its sideways movement over the last 3-4 years
Yep.
back into overdrive to the
Two
upside?
things.
Yep.
Solution in the trade, war situation, or some type of halt in production at one of the big mines. And that happens on a regular basis.
Okay.
Like, there'll be a cave-in,
So both of those
there'll
have
be
to happen, or just one?
just one. All you need, right now, demand exceeds supply. So the only way that's being made up right now is using up excess inventories. But if all of a sudden there's some type of catalyst where there's more shortages, price will take off.
So by what you're saying, though, we're drawing down existing inventories. Where is the point on the timeline where we actually draw down all those inventories?
I can't tell you that.
Okay, you have to kill me. Right.
But there's, it's stated in several articles that, by the mid 2020s, you're going to start to see a lot of these closures, and that's going to put a lot of pressure on copper.
Now, Steve, you've been to this mine site, correct?
No.
Oh, you haven't?
It's not a mine site. It's an exploration property.
Well, an exploration property. It's actually formerly several mines exist there
two
historically,
old mines. Yep.
right?
Yep.
But not currently a mine site, currently an exploration site. You visited the project, and in your geological opinion, from what you saw, is this got everything it takes to become a mine?
It's an interesting exploration property. Yeah, that's
Okay,
that's
all
how
we're gonna
I
get it.
usually put it.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's safe. All right, well, great. Full disclosure, both myself and Ed are shareholders in
As
this
you
company.
are.
As I am.
And of course, Steve is the biggest shareholder in the whole thing. And Steve, are you a shareholder?
No, I'm not.
No, you're not. Oh, okay. Who let this guy in? No, just kidding. Anyway, so this is not entirely a mining show, in case you're wondering, dear audience. We're going to now tell you about the news that's moving our market around. So, big news today was Invictus MD Strategies merging with GTech. Unbelievable. Unbelievable! Anyways, Invictus MD Strategies Corp announced they've entered into a non-binding LOI with GTech Holdings. The merger will form Western Canada's largest indoor vertically integrated cannabis company. The acquisition by Invictus for all of the issued and outstanding shares in the capital of GTech is an all-share transaction valued at approximately $100 million. Holders of GTech common shares will receive approximately 40% of the issued and outstanding shares of Invictus post-closing. The issuance of Invictus shares to the current GTech shareholders represents an approximate 25% premium to the 30-day volume-weighted average trading price of the common shares of both GTech and Invictus as of November 15, 2018. Invictus also announced that they've successfully exercised their option to acquire 100% of the outstanding shares of Canandia. The acquisition of Canandia represents the company's third cultivation facility licensed by Health Canada. Invictus' production facility portfolio now includes licensed cannabis operations in the provinces of British Columbia, Alberta, and Ontario. CEO of Acreage Holdings, Kevin Murphy, announced his ownership in the company today. He announced that he has acquired 168,000 Class C multiple voting shares as well as 113,102 Class B proportionate voting shares of the company. The 168,000 Class C multiple voting shares each carry 3,000 votes, giving this the undisputed control position of the company. The CEO and the entities under the control and direction of Mr. Murphy also continue to hold an aggregate of 16 million units of Acreage Holdings, which are ultimately convertible into 16 million Class A subordinate voting shares of the company. He will also receive 540,000 options, each of which entitles him to purchase an additional subordinate voting share. The multiple voting shares, proportionate voting shares, convertible units, and the options represent total ownership in the aggregate of approximately 49.7% of the outstanding subordinate voting shares. Mr. Murphy holds and controls his shares in the company for the investment purposes only and are designed to ensure he has voting control of meetings of shareholders of the company. Hard to digest, but we are going to live with it for now. We're going to have a detailed, in-depth analysis of that structure next week. Back to the news now. Chiron Life Sciences Corp. announced the company has received $14 million from the exercise of warrants, of which the expiry date was accelerated to November 14th, 2018. Total of 11.67 million warrants were exercised, representing 96% of the warrants at a price of $1.20 per warrant. With the exercise of the warrants, the unaudited consolidated cash position as of November 15th is $25 million. Blisco Cannabis Corp. announced that they've received a comprehensive sales license from Health Canada to sell bulk cannabis and prepackaged, labeled, and tested cannabis products. The company, will soon be launching its e-commerce website and Bliss Connect, a telemedicine app for medical cannabis consultations to service its medical clients. And MedMen Enterprises, the company everyone loves to hate, has signed a definitive agreement to acquire the retail operations and license for a location in Santa Ana, California, through an all-stock transaction with Captor Capital Corp, valued at approximately $16 million. The store is currently MedMen branded and managed. MedMen Enterprises also announced their chief financial officer, James Parker, resigned, and that Jim Miller, the company's vice president of accounting, has been appointed interim chief financial officer until Parker's successor is named. Cureleaf Holdings has opened Tallahassee's largest medical cannabis store. As the state approaches 150,000 registered medical marijuana patients, Cureleaf is opening its 16th medical marijuana dispensary in Florida. Cureleaf now has 31 dispensaries in the United States.
Well,
Yeah. So, what do you think?
deep subject. Well,
So that's an interesting business, consulting with patients to throw business to the LPs.
right.
And I don't know if I didn't ask if he got compensated by the LPs, and I wish I had. But I find it interesting that,
Would Alethea be in that category?
yeah, that's kind of the same thing Alethea does, but this guy is all via telephone and online. So there's no physical.
So that you don't eventually see anyone.
That's right. Well, you do via online.
So they don't they just see you online.
Yeah.
They don't really see you.
Well, they do if you've got your camera on. If you don't have your camera on, then they don't. That a little
Interesting.
interesting.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I thought.
Yeah, virtual world.
Yeah. Have you looked at the cannabis market today?
It's drifting.
Drifting.
Yeah. That I saw. For instance, I saw Trust was 860-ish,
Oh, okay.
870. I saw ACB, but ACB was down. Afri was down. Let's take a look.
Yeah. Did you look at this G-Tech chart?
Okay.
Is my IFB?
You gonna put it up there?
Oh yeah, I'm going to try. But first, I have to launch my
Look at this. Johnson Wagner here is down 8 cents.
Johnson Wagner.
What is it?
James E. Wagner Cultivation Corp. Johnson Wagner. Though I'm sure James E. Wagner had a Johnson. Pretty sure that's not what he named the company after. Just a hunch.
They won't forget it.
IFB to IFB, G-Tech coming in strong.
So G-Tech's now what's going to be the resulting company? Is it going to be
So Invictus bought G-Tech.
bought the whole thing?
Yeah.
How much a share?
Well, the equivalent was an 80% premium or 25% premium over the last 30 days of trading from November 15th.
So if you'd have bought it yesterday before it halted, you'd have made good
Well,
pass.
we're looking at the chart here
No, we're not.
on our NDI,
No, sir.
theoretically. There we go. All right, so there's the lift in the share price today at that last candle. So it rocked up to 99 cents and settled back down to
91.
85 right
It's
now.
got to be a stock deal, not a cash deal.
Yeah, it was a stock deal. All
Yeah.
stock deal.
So if their stock drops, then this stock's going to drop. And that's why you'd explain the things dropped from 99 down to.
Yeah, well, so if we were to pull up the chart
Right.
on Invictus, whose symbol is GENE on the Canadian exchange, or INVTF on the Invictus, INVTEF. GENE, yeah, they changed their symbol. Their symbol used to be, I believe it was INV,
Yeah.
and they changed it to GENE
Gene Simmons.
because they have Gene Simmons on the board of directors.
No.
Yeah.
Cop.
Copper? No, seriously. Rock and Roll and Invictus MD. Yeah. No, Gene Simmons is in the deal.
Wow.
He's basically a celebrity for hire these days.
Look at the stock did try to run higher.
Yeah. Yeah. It was halted this morning
Notice
at $1.29.
the long wick there.
Yeah. Big what? It was halted this morning at $1.29. So there was a bit of a lift there. This really, interestingly enough, categorizes the trading or characterizes the trading of the day. Really, really indecisive, sort of
Yeah.
drifting, floating.
But maybe, some people are seeing the writing on the wall and saying,
On a
hey, you know what? We got to
Sunday
consolidate. We got to get
afternoon.
involved. That deal that we saw yesterday, acreage, that was not good.
Get away too soon.
I hope my discussion of serious topics doesn't interfere with your
I guess
attempt.
you'd say, what can make me feel this way? My girl, my girl, my girl. Okay, Edward, now we're talking serious charts here. Okay, so here's all the indexes.
All right.
There we go. What do we got? We got a down day. Down slightly. 2% across the boards, I would say, on average.
Yeah.
So, nah. You know what, though?
You know what
This day is? This is the second day. Oh, no, it's not. That's next week. Never mind.
it's not a good
next week-
day for the space, but you know what? Jeez.
No.
I don't like to see this. This is the kind of action. I've been involved in things before where
When markets are like this, Ed, it's a good day to look at gold.
let's take a look at gold.
So Judy Baker was here a little earlier, and here's what she had to say about her gold project.
Okay.
Hey, welcome back. My guest this segment is Judy Baker. She's the president and CEO of Argo Gold Inc., trading on the CSE under the symbol ARQ. Judy, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Judy, tell me about Argo Gold. What are your main projects? Where are you located?
Okay. Argo Gold was founded in the first quarter of 2016. It was the business plan of Delio Tortosa, Bill Kerr, and myself. We were focused on acquiring high-grade gold projects in northwestern Ontario. Why? Bill Kerr has actually quite a bit of experience in the greenstone belts in northwestern Ontario. He's got 40 years of exploration under his belt. And it was Bill's view that northwestern Ontario had a lot of high-grade, long-term producing gold mines, but a significant lack of exploration, particularly in the last in the last 10 years. As you see, a lot of exploration in Timmins, Val-d'Or, Kirkland Lake, in other parts of east and central Canada, but not a lot going on in northwestern Ontario, but a lot of good long-term producing assets.
Why is that? Why is there less so?
I think it's a little more remote, a little more far. Like Red Lake's 450 kilometers, northwest of Thunder Bay, right? So just a little farther, farther afield, and not as much access. So we started Delio Tortosa, again, 40 years experience, was the key gentleman in terms of identifying and shortlisting projects. The team agreed we had a list of projects that we were targeting. What was available initially was McVicker Lake, so we staked that project right out of the gates, and that's 30 kilometers northwest of the past-producing Golden Patricia mine, which was 600,000 ounces, produced 14 gram per ton gold in the 90s. So that was the first project, but the flagship asset of the company is the Wolco Gold Project. And we acquired the initial part of Wolco in November of 2016.
And so how much of it do you control right now?
All of Argo Gold's projects are 100% owned by Argo Gold and its shareholders.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So
And with NSRs?
there are some, yes.
Okay.
It's hard to do deals on gold projects without
Right.
NSRs, but generally they're in the 2% range with
Got to leave some upside for the prospector, right?
1% buybacks, yes.
Sure.
So that was kind of how the company was put together. In the spring of 2017, gold markets were still good. Argo Gold was able to raise about $800,000. We carried out exploration on all 8 100% owned projects in the summer of 2017. From the work we did, field work we did, Argo Gold determined core assets versus non-core. And Argo Gold's flagship asset, Wolco, was determined core. And by early August 2017, we had doubled our ground out there with another acquisition, acquired more ground in February of 2018. And when online staking came, we doubled Argo Gold's ground position out there again. So now we have 14 square kilometers at Wolco.
Mm-hmm. Now, the thing you told me about this project that really got my attention was that you were 75 kilometers away from Great Bear Resources' recent discovery that has sent that company's stock into the stratosphere, and that you had the same geology in the same volcanics.
Yes. Okay. So what's interesting, when Chris Taylor of Great Bear gets up to talk about Dixie, he starts off in some of the presentations, we're in the wrong rocks, and the wrong rocks being the Confederation volcanics. They're 2.75 billion years old. They're the younger volcanics overlying the 2.9 billion year old Bomber volcanics, which host the Red Lake mines. And all the greenstone belts up there are known for their depth potential. So both Argo Gold's Wolco project, Great Bear's Dixie project, are both in these, the high-grade gold mineralization known to date is both in the Confederation volcanics as well. Both projects are proximal to the south boundary of the Uchi geologic subprovince. So you've got a major structure there that that both Great Bear's Dixie and Argo Gold's Wolco project are proximal to. And then the third thing would be there's actually comparable historic drill results at relatively shallow depths. Great Bear's high-grade gold mineralization depths, they're showing about 150, 200 meters. Argo Gold, more in the 100-meter range. But good high-grade gold mineralization, in a known prolific gold-producing part of the world.
So what kind of drill results have you experienced?
Well, Argo Gold would have probably multiple intercepts of a couple ounces over a couple meters.
Okay, so these are vein hosted?
Yeah, it's both Great Bear's Dixie, Argo Gold, Wolco. They're narrow vein, quartz vein systems. And so that's similar to whether it's the Red Lake mines or the small high-grade underground mines in the Wawa camp, right? And interestingly enough, in some time historically, these have been type of assets have been out of favor, and people have wanted to go for low-grade, open pit,
bulk tonnage,
all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that these high-grade, narrow vein gold deposits have continued to produce for companies.
So I guess it's a different expertise.
And so, if you look at Wesdome's operated its Eagle with producing over 40,000 ounces a year for over 20 years. And now they've just, in the last couple of years, they were discovering multiple zones at Eagle. You had Richmont Mines producing 50,000 ounces for 8 years. They got into Island Deep. They got into twice the grade, twice the width. They took their production from 50,000 ounces a year to 80,000 ounces a year without increasing mill capacity. And Richmont Mines was sold for $1 billion.
Yeah.
So there's value and being seen in these high-grade, narrow vein underground gold systems that have continued to produce for companies.
Sure.
So that's and I guess that's one of the reasons we actually was part of the business plan is we're seeing gold production in Canada go up. So.
Okay, so where are you at today? Are you about to start drilling again? Are you doing?
Yeah, Argo Gold is permitted for. The plan is to start drilling early February at the flagship Wolco project. We have a 25-meter drill program planned.
25,000 meter.
25,000.
I was going to say 25 meters. Boy, you're going to hit a lot of
25
gold with that.
25,000 meter exploration program planned.
Right.
We're just dealing with a river crossing permit, but
Okay.
we have our drill permits in place.
Cool. And so you anticipate drilling into the same structure, the Confederation Volcanics?
Yeah, exactly.
Where are the bomber volcanics in all this?
Well, that's the thing. They underlie, right?
So they could be deep.
They,
And with Red Lake,
exactly.
bar the door if you hit that kind of mineralization.
Right. And like Argo Gold, like I think the best, one of the I think there's 4 ounces per ton over 2 meters. And, you know, with that kind of gold mineralization, obviously there's good indication there's gold in the system.
Sure. So how much money have you got in the bank, and what's the plan for raising more?
Argo Gold is in fundraising mode right now.
Oh, are you?
Yes.
What a coincidence.
What a coincidence. So basically looking at, it's $1 million in flow through and $500,000 hard.
$1 million flow through?
Yeah.
And it's the right time of year for raising flow through, isn't it?
Absolutely. Yeah. So from meetings we had, there's interest, even confirmed this week for over half that financing.
Oh, really? Well, I've got some people who would be interested in hearing about this, so we'll talk about that. So then the new program starting in 25,000 meters, that's not insignificant. I mean, that could be defining, really. That's enough for it to outline a deposit.
Sorry, 2,500 meters.
2,500 meters. Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Well, that's still not insignificant. It's more than 25 meters.
Yes,
I was going to say, going to drill
It's
5
Friday.
holes of 5 meters deep.
It's Friday.
Super shallow. It is Friday.
So-
Okay, great. Then and your other projects, you've got several cobalt projects in Ontario too.
Yeah, actually, before I go on to the cobalt, I just want to just put the significance of the gold projects in perspective. And that is that, so we talked about that these high-grade gold projects have continued to produce underground, narrow vein systems. The other component is Canada's actually become the 5th largest gold producer in the world, up from number 8 5 years ago. And this was some of the data I looked at with respect to embarking on this business plan. And the other, and the reason that is, one of the reasons that is I think mining companies want to have infrastructure in Western world countries, and the assets they have continued to produce for them. And I think that's because they can hire the best people who want to live in Western world countries. And then of the Canadian gold production, Ontario is the largest producer, with over a third of production. So it's been an increasing economic contributor for Canada.
Sure.
And Ontario is, so just to put that all in perspective. Now, the cobalt projects come in early May. The DRC and Glencore went to court over $7 billion in royalties, right? And Glencore's the only Western world producer in the DRC left, right? And so 90% of the cobalt's coming out of the Central African the Central African copper belt,
Right,
okay, is
right.
where 90% of the cobalt's coming out of. But it's a growth market because of electric vehicles, electric power tools. So the whole battery market is driving a growth market, and you have a place where there's an uncertainty of how much future supply based on politics. So therefore, I think for the first time you can maybe start to justify cobalt exploration in Western world countries.
Yeah.
And so that was what we said, okay, we think it's time to start picking up some cobalt projects here, and I just kind of want to see how the production of cobalt moves forward coming out of the Central African copper belt to supply the market. And I think that'll drive how much capital is available for exploration.
Sure.
And we have 3 great projects.
Okay. Great. All right, Judy, let's leave it there for now. We'll come back to you after you've started drilling in February and see how that's going. Thanks very much for joining me today.
Okay, cheers.
Well,
Yeah, that sounds like Judy's got herself a real
I
project.
think she's got
underway.
a property there that that's getting some attention, some
Yeah.
serious attention from some big money mining guys.
Yeah. Gold has been doing okay with the recent global sort of broad market weakness, hasn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, there's a new way to buy gold in markets. It's called digital gold. And here to explain how that works is Sprott CEO Peter Grosskopf. Welcome back. My guest this segment is Peter Grosskopf. He's the CEO of Sprott Inc., trading on the TSX under symbol SII. Peter, welcome.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Peter, we could talk forever about Sprott and all of its various peregrinations, but today I want to talk to you about the One Gold product that I was recently received an email about. What is One Gold?
Great. Well, it's brand new. It's basically the customer organization that we've set up to be able to buy and sell and trade and hold digital gold.
Mm-hmm. And how would you describe digital gold?
So for us, digital gold is on the blockchain, and it's using all of the technology that had the cryptocurrencies become the focus of investor attention. They're fast, they're accurate, and in this case, it has physical gold as its backing. So it's a technology that represents a certificate of the gold in storage. In this case, our first product is at the Royal Canadian Mint.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so does it come with an associated crypto coin?
It's not a coin, it's a certificate, but
Okay.
the certificate has the blockchain underlying it.
Mm-hmm. And so is there a basic unit value of gold per?
Yeah,
basic
we can
unit?
denominate it in any unit for an investor.
Right. Okay, interesting. And so it's backed by physical gold, and
It is,
and
yeah,
that's
which is our favorite.
yeah, right. Well, coming from a Sprott organization, that's
Right.
very comforting.
Uh-huh.
Okay, so now what would be the practical application for One Gold as either an investor or is it to be used by individuals as a unit of payment?
It will eventually. So we're starting just with the website, which allows you as an individual investor to make a buy or a sell of gold faster, quicker, and cheaper than you've ever been able to do it before through a commercial bank or an ETF. And so that's the essence of it to start with. It's just very efficient, and you can hold your gold on account with One Gold.
Okay.
And then eventually we'll get into having a wallet and being able to use that wallet for payment for goods and services.
Sure.
Yeah.
So one of the downsides about investing in bullion for me has always been that in a flat or negative gold price environment, it actually costs you money to hold on to gold, which
Right.
actually undermines the upside of the future gold price to some degree based on whatever your value parameters are. So then does this One Gold certificate then not have any management fees on an annualized basis for holding or representing a unit of gold?
So the underlying certificate is the first one that we're featuring is called Vault Chain. It's offered by a technology company called Tradewinds, and that's the first coin, if you want to call it that, that'll be on the system. And that does not have an annual management fee. One Gold itself will charge a small fee based on the value of your account. I can't even quote what that is right now, but it's inside of any other kind of similar organization.
Sure. So then what is the value proposition for an investor to invest in this relative to bullion?
Okay. It is going to be easier for you to buy the gold, and it is going to be available to you at a much lower spread than what you could get buying the bullion through other ventures.
Okay. And so I'm going to participate in any upside in the price of gold over time as long as I hold the certificate.
Yeah, it's basically getting gold one step closer to being usable as a cash equivalent.
Okay. And so is the plan or the vision rather to make this thing something that I could take a card or load a app onto my phone and use my account to pay for items at a point of sale?
Absolutely. App, wallet, and eventually payment. Yeah.
Interesting. So in opposition to cash, which has a more or less stable value over time, you're using your equity in this investment while maintaining exposure to the upside in gold should there be a rise in the price of gold over time.
Absolutely. You're basically, it's addressing the criticism, which was at least partially accurate, that what are you going to do? Take your gold to a gas station and buy it that way? Well, yes, now you can. Gold needed to come into the modern age and be usable within and without inside and outside the financial system as a method of payment and as a cash equivalent holding. And this is getting it one step closer to being that.
Mm-hmm. Would this be considered a competitor to gold money?
Yes, it could be. It could be.
Okay.
Absolutely, because gold money does offer storage, and they offer the ability to move in and out of the system on credit and debit cards. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So would it be appropriate to ask you, what is the Sprott organization's outlook for the price of gold going forward into the future?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
Yeah, so you mentioned that earlier as to whether gold is gaining or losing versus cash, and I would say cash is actually losing. Okay, cash is losing because you've got inflation, and so the cash is worth less in terms of its ability to buy goods and services going forward. I think gold will outperform cash, and it has actually outperformed cash in almost every year. It doesn't every year, but for the most part, if an individual can say, I can hold US dollars, Canadian dollars in Canada, or gold, I think there is a heck of a case to be made that you should be holding at least a serious portion of your cash in gold, because gold's going to do better than cash over time. It's just more inflation protected.
Mm-hmm. And so by extension, is silver part of this equation?
It is. Silver will be offered on the One Gold platform as well.
Okay.
So identical that way. Of course, silver is a much smaller market than gold,
Right.
a little bit less liquid. And the proverbial axiom of that market, I think, will hold true, which is when gold moves bullish and is having a bull move, silver will usually move more than gold. It's just a smaller market. It gets squeezed easier.
Sure. So I'm always sort of been the gold market scares me.
Okay.
Because it strikes me that there's an absence of consistency in the ability of gold to accurately reflect value in the context of actual demand and supply, because there's this layer overlaying the physical gold market that we call the futures market, which trades multiple in the volume of gold on a daily basis.
Absolutely.
And sort of doesn't really make sense to me in the context of what the value proposition of a future which used to be a price discovery mechanism, and it now seems to be more a price determination mechanism. And so does the price of gold, and this is one of the reasons why I hesitate to, even though this new platform is going to make it easier and the costs are going to be lower and the risks associated with holding it lower, I'm still concerned that the price of gold is not able to reflect the value of gold because of this futures market disconnect.
Okay. I'm going to break it down if I can. Your concern is valid, and the futures market and macro traders do drive the price of gold, especially in the short term. The trading volume in the gold market would shock anyone in terms of total volume of and dollar value of trades. It's a very liquid market, and it gets driven by macro traders, which influence the price through their trading of the futures markets. So that's valid. But in the long term, gold's price determination will occur based on whether people would rather hold it versus cash or not. Like, the long-term ownership of gold will always be determined by that, and we think favorably so. We think people will rather hold gold than cash in the long run. So then coming back to the first part of your question, does that futures and macro trading, will it hurt me holding gold? Well, I don't think so. I think it's going to help you just as much as it's going to hurt you, because when the macro traders get scared of what's going on in the other markets, they're going to come into gold and drive it higher. I think on balance, it'll be a positive move going forward.
Sure. Interesting. The prospect of owning digital gold, and the reason that email kind of excited me is because I think that in some respects the generation, the millennials that are now evolving into the mainstream, who would have normally been the avatars of gold as libertarian-minded individuals,
Right.
They've their attention span has been sidetracked into this cryptocurrency universe, where the whole discussion of the value and the fungibility and the security and privacy and all of these things. It's interesting to me because the same arguments are actually what drive the argument for gold.
Yes, they are. They're
And so-
philosophically the same.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yet they, uniformly are against the idea of gold as, that's your grandfather's equity play. Ours is our own digital currency. And this looks like a way to bridge that gap.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah, they had a point, right? Because cryptos were incredibly easy to trade, mobile or via your crypto trading house, and you could zip them around the internet at lightning fast speeds. And the whole thought that this was a unit of currency that was outside of the fiat-controlled currency systems. And it was super easy to use, and it was also, by the way, going up a lot.
Right.
So it attracted a lot of attention from every type of investor because it was going up a lot. Look, that was compelling, but gold needed to respond to the challenge. Gold needed to attach itself to some of the same technologies to become usable, fast, razor-thin margins, and quite frankly, more appealing to a younger and more technologically savvy user base. So I think it takes a step in that direction.
Sure. So what is necessary to become a participant in the One Gold system? Do you have to be an accredited investor? Do you have to be a client of size?
No.
Can I be a millennial with $500 to invest?
That's right. You can open an account at any size. You do need to fill out a short client application as you would for almost any kind of website these days. So as long as they know who you are, you can have that account. You can buy and sell and trade at any price. So that's a huge advantage compared to the commercial banking system and even the brokerage systems, which has in many cases account minimums, fairly high percentage trading charges, especially for low transaction values, right? So we're getting past all that.
Interesting. Okay, so where do I go to start this process? I want
Just
to
go
sign up.
online.
Okay.
www.onegold.com.
Okay, well, that's great,
Yeah.
Peter. Well, that's a very revealing conversation. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Okay, thanks for having me.
So what do you think? Would you try digital gold?
I've tried just about everything else. So look at it. At the end of the day, gold's been around for 5,000 years.
That long? I thought it was around for much longer. Judy was saying earlier that it was in rocks that were 2.5 billion years old.
No. I meant
Gold is money. I know what you meant, Ed. I've just taken
funny.
the low-hanging comic fruit here.
Funny.
So
No money, no honey, no funny.
the thing I like about this digital gold thing is it makes more sense than any other crypto coin I've ever heard of,
Yeah.
including Bitcoin, which is backed by absolutely nothing. It's just like the fault and the fallacy of the whole cryptocurrency mumbo jumbo evolution is
Right.
that it's always just going to be a proxy for the
Right,
currency
right,
that
right.
bought it and the currency to which it must be sold to be worth anything.
The whole question here is interesting. I mean, like paper currencies, fiat currencies, if you will, central banks, printing money, this whole thing. And what does it really do to anybody? Like, people win lotteries they lose everything. Like their families break up. So I like listening to a guy like this because he's connected to some of the smart mining minds.
Yeah, no, I think I'm actually going to register for an account at onemoney.com, and I'm going to try it out. And the great thing about that is if you have a bank account with $100,000 in it that you're spending down, that's your spending account, and you've got the same account with $100,000 worth of this gold, digital gold in it.
Yeah.
If gold, for whatever reason, goes up in price from when you put that money in there, then you've got more money. Your money multiplies.
So-
without the costs of storage, shipping, handling,
Yeah.
insurance that have typically played gold ownership in the past. So I think
No, it's
everybody should
it's
look
an
at that.
interesting concept, and
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, so getting back to our audience, our beloved audience, there's a few interesting questions here that we should wrap our heads around. Thank you, Edward.
There.
Jester X asks Midas Letter's thoughts on G-Tech being acquired by Invictus MD. Seems like a bad deal for G-Tech shareholders who got in above $1. Jester X, I would concur with that assessment. And this is the problem with being a small shareholder in a widely held deal in which the owners are almost entirely the insiders, is that if they get a 10-25% lift in their shareholding, that constitutes a major win. But if you only have 10,000 shares and you bought the stock and undertook all that risk, expecting at least a double in the cannabis space, you just got the downside of the risk there. You just got the hard lesson, learning the hard way. James Albert wants to know, what do we all think about Terry Booth's profanity-laced comments at the Vegas Cannabis Conference? Will this affect potential institutional investors from participating?
Everything affects everything. Like, at the end of the day, it can't help.
Well, but so, obviously it's uncomfortable to see the CEO of a billion-dollar global corporation standing up on a stage, swaggering about, and swearing and cursing like a drunken sailor. Nobody likes to see that. It's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for him. It's embarrassing for the audience. So no, I don't like that.
Maybe he took a little too much cannabis.
Well, I think Terry's more inclined towards the
sauce
intoxicant that comes in a bottle, personally.
Sauce.
But overriding that discomfort and overriding that distaste, that is a personal subjective observation. If the guy is going to take my $2 investment and turn it into an $8 exit, he can curse and swear and get up on the fucking stage and say whatever the fuck he wants and say it as many fucking times as he'd like. I don't give a fuck about anybody's discomfort or distaste. The man made me rich. So, whereas we all like to pretend we're a lot more polished and well-heeled than we actually are, we all like to pretend we're not quite the animals rutting around in the filth that we are, just trying to survive.
Sounds like a chapter from take a Salzier and make it into a silk purse.
Okay, that's a good interpretation. But the bottom line here is, I don't want to be seen as the pot calling the kettle black, because we're big fans of fucking profanity ourselves. Ah! Anyways, Terry Booth did an amazing job with Roar. There's no denying that. He can curse and swear all he wants. Would I invite him over to my mother's for dinner? Absolutely not. Would I go tip a drink with him and say hello and maybe twist up a little spliff? And absolutely.
Blunt or a spliff?
I prefer the spliff.
Okay.
A blunt is, speaks for itself. Sounds like something you bludgeon yourself on the head with. Anyways, no more of that. There's going to be outrage and indignation expressed in the mainstream press in Canada because they like to be somewhat representative of the Canadian. Okay.
Wait a minute. I guess we're off.
Yeah. Okay, great. The market's closed at 4:08 today.
Oh,
yeah,
nice.
They decided to stay open for an extra 8 minutes.
Let's close it again. Let's make sure it's really closed.
That's right.
Put the bells up again.
Sure the market's closed enough?
Play it. It's closed. It's official.
All right.
You know
Anyways,
what?
Faye Smith said,
Close
let's
it up
please
again.
talk about Sokoman Iron Corp. So
Sick.
Sokoman,
Sick.
SIC on the TSX venture, put out a press release today where they had intercepted 24 meters of 33 grams per ton in the
That's an
eastern
ounce per
trend at the
ton.
Moosehead project in Newfoundland.
That's serious.
That's a beautiful intercept, especially when you consider it in the context of their last intercept in the same area, which I don't have that handy, but let me just look here. So that last press release, where was it? Where was the discovery one? Okay. See, this is, here's a lesson to all public company CEOs. Don't put out a press release whose title says, confirms high-grade gold at project. Put the intercept that is the best intercept in the headline every single time. You're going to get 3 times the audience and 3 times the reaction. I can't believe that people still make that mistake. But anyways, they had a discovery hole. And so I can't find it because they didn't put that in the press release. But anyways, so this is another major intercept phase, Smith. I just want to finish my thought here. On a previous successful drill hole, now what we got to look at on a map is how far is this drill hole from the original drill hole? Because if it's on trend and
Connect the dots, so to speak.
connect the dots, yeah. And if there's, if it coincides with other preliminary exploration results like geophysics or magnetics, then
Magnetics.
Yeah, then maybe we're onto something. Like you're at magnetic, Ed. Your magnetic personality. Okay, when we come back in just a minute, we're going to talk about today's winners, today's losers, and next week's likely performance on some of our favorite names. But right now, we're going to hear from Sean Cookson on what to do if you want to grow your 4 plants that you're allowed in Canada from seeds.
Now that prohibition has been lifted on cannabis, an individual is allowed to cultivate up to 4 plants per household. I think that's fantastic. And I'd like to partake in growing some plants of my own. I'm a little green when it comes to caring for plants, and not in a good way. 2 green thumbs down, actually. So I think it would be prudent for me to get a few tips from an expert before I get started.
People bug me about my name every single day. Don't worry about all the bells and whistles. You don't need that. Marijuana is very easy to grow. You just want to make sure you have a clean space with good ventilation and good light. The first and most important thing is germinating your seed.
So the first step is seeds, or I could go the clone route. Now, where do I buy?
That's the question of the hour. Unfortunately, right now, they don't exist. Not in Ontario.
What the flora? This has to be a mistake. This can't be. I mean, what's the point of being able to grow legal marijuana if the licensed producers are not supplying the seeds?
I reached out to Health Canada to get some answers.
You would like to know a provider that can provide you with seeds to grow your cannabis?
Yes, please.
You're in Ontario. It's handled by the provincial government. So you have the OCS, Ontario Cannabis Store. So those are the people that you need to call, and they will inform you when will they have seeds available.
So then I reached out to the Ontario Cannabis Store, the OCS.
Yes, we get a lot of questions. We do not currently have seeds. There's talk that we'll be getting them at some point. Not sure.
So you don't have a date on when they might be available?
I do not, sir. I wish I could give you something more specific. Obviously, given the fact that people can grow up to 4 plants, and if they want to get legal seeds, so you would think that we would have them off the start, but
we'll just have to wait and see. I even called up a gardening center that seemed a little too seedy.
You see what I did there, right?
So I was wondering if you sell cannabis seeds.
Yep.
Okay. And are you a licensed provider in Ontario?
No, we are not.
Oh, but you're allowed to sell them?
Well, we're continuing to sell them until they line us up against the wall and shoot us.
In keeping with that positive note, I did find businesses online that were selling cannabis seeds legally, as long as those seeds were only sold as novelty items and not for germination. Unfortunately, none of these businesses were available for comment.
Well, it looks like you can buy cannabis seeds in Canada if the supplier you're buying them from is only selling them as a novelty.
So who's to blame for the lack of legally issued seeds and clones? With the speed at which cannabis products have been introduced to the public, there are bound to be some hiccups.
So go ahead, buy cannabis seeds from suppliers that are selling them as knickknacks or trinkets. I'm not going to tell you what to do with those seeds once you receive them. But if you're like me, maybe you'll get creative. Create a musical instrument out of them. Maybe not. From Midas Lighter Live, I'm Sean Cookson.
Well, I got to tell you, that was funny. That was funny.
Oh, Sean Cookson cracks me up.
That was really funny.
That was great. Oh, man. Yeah, so, I mean, back to Terry's comments in Las Vegas, his most, call it aggressive comment, and the target of his ire was very, very squarely the Ontario Cannabis Store, who he categorized as having shat the bed.
Shat?
Shat. That's to shit the bed, but...
So is he related to William Shatner?
No, I don't think he is, Ed.
I think he is.
I don't think so. Anyways, so, I think we can say pretty much unequivocally that at this point, the Ontario Cannabis Store, who has like 70-plus employees, has failed to impress. Especially, again, I'm going to point out the existence of this packaging discrepancy, which I don't know. Well, I have to let the camera see it. So if you'll notice here that it says 2.5 grams per unit of THC and 1 gram per unit of CBD down there. But in each sentence it says followed by total THC is 45 and 45. There's no way to make that math work in view of the fact that there's 5 joints in here. Okay? So do that math any way, shape, or form you can. There's just no reconciling that. I asked Cam Batley about that. He said, I don't see what you're talking about. But anyways, this is supposed to be represented as 1-to-1 equal cannabis CBD to THC. So I reached out to the store and asked them about this discrepancy. Didn't get an answer. Was told that they are not giving interviews right now. We're going to stay on that because that's just not an acceptable position from the government, whom I might remind them and anybody else out there who's listening, we elect and whom we pay through our taxes. So like, hey, OCS, get it together. We're coming for a conversation. Now we're going to look at some of the stocks that did well today in the cannabis space. We're back onto the cannabis thing, everybody. Pleased to hear that you're pleased. And we're looking at the indexes here. We're going to start with the CSE. And you can see here that it's a mixed bag day.
Yeah.
There we go.
Nothing
slow about the control room.
Look at this.
All right, so
yeah, just down.
2 center doesn't matter, doesn't care. Juju, 11 cents. Oh, did I just sell another $100,000 into that nonsense? I did. Oh, I'm sorry.
100,000 shares.
Yeah, but down 15.38%. Really disappointed in Juju and lack of execution there. Chemsys International. Heard a comment from somebody in the online chat. They called it Isodiol number 2, which at $1.30.
Which one?
Chemsys International.
Isodiol number 2.
Yeah, that's what he said. I thought, well, that's interesting because at $1.36, that's attractive because Isodiol did above $3 at its peak, so maybe it's still going there. Empower Clinics, another clinic deal, 15 center, down 14.71%. Believe lost 11% or 2 cents at 16 cents. I'm going to make a quick comment about Believe here. The word on the street is that Believe is actually turning out some of the best marijuana.
Good stuff.
In the whole mix here. So I'm actually going to go and become a Believe patient because I'm not going to wait for my recreational cannabis to arrive because it's pretty unreliable. Let's see what else. Anything else? Sproutly lost a little bit, down to 40 cents. Heritage Cannabis Holdings closed the day at 19 cents. Not bad, down 7.5. Micron Waste Technologies. Oh, by way of disclosure, I am a shareholder of Heritage Cannabis. Micron Waste Technologies lost another 3 cents, slowly ebbing. Wayland Group getting down into very, very what we would classify as oversold territory. Full disclosure, they're a client. FSD Pharma down to 41 cents. What else we got here? Basically a red day all over the place.
You know, this is the hard part if you're a shareholder and you bought it because you thought you thought it was going to go up, and so you bought some because you jumped on the wet. and now it's sort of just drifting without a lot of action.
Yeah.
And it
Look at all the stocks that did nothing.
Yeah, unchanged.
Okay, but let's see who are the winners on the CSE. Title Royalty Corp, up to 21 cents. That
Up
was
3
17 cents. Yeah.
What was the volume, I wonder?
Well, let's take a quick look here.
Because that might shed some light.
Volume.
Wow, 2.83. Yes.
Okay.
Lots of shares.
So let's see. Then that's coming out of basically a trade by appointment sort of pattern. 202,000 shares on Wednesday, November 7th. 413. Okay, so something's up. Title, Royalty, and Harborside. Okay, so Harborside, this is interesting. Harborside is one of the earliest medical dispensaries in the state of California, run by Steve D'Angelo, who's also the chairman of the Arcview Group.
Right.
And Steve D'Angelo is the guy who wrote the book, The Cannabis Manifesto. He's featured in our documentary as an authority on the history of cannabis activism among patients in California. He's a really, really knowledgeable guy, and that, to me, is probably the most significant news I've heard out of Title Royalty ever. So, Title Royalty. So this was a twins deal, and you know what I mean by that. And they raised a bunch of dough and basically cut her loose by the looks of things, because it certainly didn't do what their other deals do.
No. There seems to be a changing of the guard. It just doesn't seem like it was.
Well, so Paul Rosen is the CEO of Title. Paul was the founder of PharmaCann, which was actually bought by Kronos Group and was the kernel of the Kronos Group of assets. Kronos Group of assets. Boy, that's a funny thing to say.
Kronos.
But anyway, so that's interesting. Title Royalty. I would say throw that on your watch list, because at 21 cents, I mean, if Title Royalty becomes Harborside's go public vehicle, that has real implications for a lift. Now, all obviously in the context of how many shares out. So it's got 254 million shares out. I hate a baffed out company that hasn't created value before it's got a giant float, because it's got to create too much. It's got to create too much earnings and revenue per unit, being per share, to really make it give it a meaningful lift. So in terms of like a short, sharp experience to the upside, that ain't going to happen with a 250 million share float at a 21 cent deal, unless of course they acquire something transformational like Harborside's entire California business. I've been to the Harborside store. It was packed and overflowing with clients, and essentially they had bought everything off the shelves. That was back in June. But anyways, so Title Royalty, I'm going to put that on my watch list. Let's see. You know what? Let's go take a look at the Midas Letter watch list right now, just because I'm sure you all would love to know what I'm watching. So we're going to go to the Portfolio Manager, and we're going to put up the Midas Letter portfolio here. Okay, let's run through this list here. So ABN is Aben Minerals.
Yeah.
Aben Resources, rather. I own about 300,000 shares in a private placement at 30 cents, deep underwater. Expecting some drill results nonetheless. It's up in the golden triangle near.
What price did you say you bought it at?
30 cents.
Was that the that
was
the price?
The financing,
No, it was
yes.
20, wasn't it?
30 cents, sir.
And that's down 19?
Now it's down to 19 cents, yes. So off 30%, basically. This is VAI is Virtual Armor, which is a cybersecurity protection company that protects corporate enterprise class networks from cyber attack, and basically bought a big chunk of that for a very low price, much lower than that. RIV is Canopy Rivers. Canopy Rivers is our client, and I also have traded in and out of Canopy Rivers. Canopy Rivers is the investment arm of Canopy Growth Corp. So Canopy Rivers has as its CEO Bruce Linton. And so if you think that this stock is going to languish at $4, you're absolutely crazy. It's going to go at some point. Again, they're a client, so we're helping them with this effort. But I'm telling you, I am going to be a buyer of this stock. Let's see, Juju. Well, yes, I'm still a shareholder of Juju, though I am offloading the position. Northbud is a company that I'm watching because it's got a fairly tight float. It's kind of interesting. It's an Ontario-Quebec play. Got some great people behind it. Ryan Brown, who's been on our show twice. Let's see, AUSA Australis. Now, Australis is Aurora Cannabis's U.S. proxy. And I say proxy because Aurora has the right to acquire 40% of Australis through through $40 million through a warrant position. So again, Australis, do you think that's going to sit at $1.45 all its life? I don't think so. This is a company that's going to start raising money as soon as Terry and Cam can take a breath from their Aurora peregrinations, maybe. YOLO is the Weekend Unlimited. Now, YOLO, I bought shares at 25 cents? No, 20 cents. So those shares don't come free trading till next February. This is the company that is conceived as a cannabis lifestyle brand. So what they've got is they've got grow ops and destination party facilities in Jamaica. They've got events like Travis Scott was performing in Los Angeles, and it was a weekend sponsored event. They had a party at their house in Beverly Hills, which was attended by Paul Pierce, who was launching his Vesper vape product during that week.
Right.
High Hampton Resources. This is what we consider a friend of the show. So High Hampton, we know the people who put it together. It's had some rough goes, but we're expecting great things from it because the people behind the scenes are very capable.
Yeah.
And the people who are operating the company are very capable. OH is Origin House, which was formerly Canna Royalty. Bought a position in that last week at $9.70, deep underwater there. Golden, 14.5 cents. I'm in at 19 cents. That's Golden Rain or Golden Ridge.
I thought you were in at 16.
No, I bought average down at 16.
Okay.
Ianthus. This is Ianthus.
There's a green one.
Well, it's up 15 cents, but I bought it at 7 something, so not quite happy yet. Believe I've got on my watch list because I'm watching it. CWM is Crown Mining, which is the copper deal. We had the two Steves here. One of Steve Dunn is the CEO, and again, I'm a shareholder. Then, of course, Acreage. I'm watching this one. Remarkable to see that it closed at $24.25 today, just 75 cents below the IPO issue price. The only stock that can be sold right now in this company is the IPO stock. So unless guys are willing to start the year off
they might just jerk this up a bit.
Well, in the first 2 months, the only stock that can be sold is the IPO stock. After that, some of the other shares, the subordinate
They
trading
give you
shares,
2 months, eh?
2 months. Within 6 months, the entire float, the entire issued and outstanding share position in Acreage that is held by management and insiders, consultants, optionees, etc. Within 6 months, it's all free trading. So this stock's got 2 months before there's some serious free paper out there that's got a lower cost point on it than $25. Within 6 months...
Yeah, but it's not much lower.
Yeah, much lower.
Like how much lower?
$6.70. $6.70. Yeah, there's some stock out there that was 5 cents and 6 cents. Yeah. So
they must have rolled it.
Nope, they didn't.
Consolidators.
Nope. Wow. Yeah. So I'll be really surprised to see Acreage perform. How can Acreage take that share price and move it dramatically higher? Well, if they start reporting earnings and revenue and income, this stock maybe, I could be wrong. Maybe it's worth $50. Maybe $25 is going to, in the rearview mirror, look like a fair price, asking price for the IPO. Right now, with the stock controlled 87% by the CEO alone, I don't think so. I don't think so.
I don't think so, Joe.
I don't think so. I don't like it. I don't like private companies trading on public exchanges, and I don't like the regulators not sort of letting these things fly. Anyways.
Hey, look what time it is.
It's 4:29, Ed. So we're going to finish it off with a look at the UGAS-DGAS construct.
And not to blow my own horn here.
Not to beat a dead horse.
I said yesterday, looking at the reaction here on the you got them up there?
Not yet. Here it comes. D-gas, U-gas.
Yeah.
So tell us, Ed, how did you make out in your trade?
Well, it worked out. It worked out. I bought it around 3:30. I bought the D gas because I thought, after natural gas moves up to some crazy number like 490 and back down to 390, it probably will have a move in the same direction, and it did. So I was underwater $10 a share when I left last night, but they opened it up about $20 or $30. So yeah, natural gas rally today, and it seems to rally and then not rally.
Yeah. Okay, well,
So it
next
worked
week
out.
we've
It
got
worked out.
Charting Man Dan back for another conversation about his views on his technical analysis. Supreme Cannabis founder and president, that would be, I guess, John Fowler, is going to be here in studio. We are going to have Cam Batley is going to be here next week from Aurora Cannabis. Bruce Linton is going to be here from Canopy Growth. Blah. We'll get him to give us tell us about what's happening at Canopy Rivers as well. We're going to have the CFO from Canopy Rivers here on Wednesday next week, and we are going to have just a whole bunch of new guests. Lisa Crossley is going to be here from Relique.
Oh,
Yeah, we're going to have.
I've met Lisa.
Yeah, we're going to have all kinds of interesting guests, all kinds of interesting product from the 4 East production team here inside Midas Letter, and more Sean Cookson for sure. More Sean Cookson videos. Anyways, that's our show for this week, for this day. Have a fantastic weekend. Don't forget to like us and share us with all of your friends. Thank you. Bye-bye.